love or be loved? The truth will shock you. At first, it sounds like a simple question, almost poetic. But the moment you stop and really think about it, you realize how deep and uncomfortable it actually is. Because the truth is, every person has lived both sides of this experience. You've loved someone with intensity, with sincerity, with everything you had, and it wasn't returned the way you hoped. And at another point in your life, someone loved you deeply, and you couldn't give them the same in return. Both situations leave marks. Different ones, but equally powerful. Loving without being loved back can feel like standing in an empty space, giving everything you have, and hearing only silence in return. It's like speaking a language no one else understands. You give your attention, your care, your time, your affection, and instead of connection, you feel distance. And that hurts. It hurts in a quiet, persistent way. The kind of pain that doesn't always show on the outside, but stays with you in small moments. In memories. In songs. In thoughts that come back when you least expect them. But at the same time, there is something undeniably powerful about loving, even when it isn't returned. Because to love is to feel. To love is to open yourself, to take a risk, to recognize something meaningful in another person. It means your heart is still alive, still capable, still willing. And maybe that says more about you than about the outcome of that relationship. So here's a question worth thinking about. Is the value of love defined by reciprocity, or by the depth of what you felt? Now look at the other side. Being loved without loving back. At first glance, it might seem easier. After all, you're the one receiving attention, care, affection. But the reality is more complex. Because when someone places their heart in your hands and you know you can't hold it the same way, something inside you shifts. It creates a quiet pressure. A sense of responsibility you didn't ask for. You start to feel the weight of expectations you can't meet. You might try to respond. You might try to feel something more. But feelings don't work like that. And the more you try to force it, the more you realize that love cannot be negotiated. It cannot be created out of obligation. And that realization brings its own discomfort. Because you don't want to hurt the other person, but you also can't lie to yourself. So you stand there, in between, carrying a kind of emotional tension that is rarely talked about. And that's when you begin to understand something important. Being loved is not enough. Just like loving is not enough on its own. Because real love isn't one-sided. It isn't just about giving everything or receiving everything. It's about connection, alignment, mutual presence. So maybe the real answer isn't choosing between loving or being loved. Maybe the real answer is balance. Imagine what it feels like when both things happen at the same time. When you give, and the other person receives with openness. When they give, and you respond with truth. There's no pressure, no imbalance, no constant doubt. There's flow. There's exchange. There's a sense that both people are walking in the same direction. Not perfectly, not without challenges, but together. And yet, this kind of balance is rare. Not because it's impossible, but because it requires something many people struggle with: vulnerability. To love someone genuinely, you have to risk something. You have to let go of control. You have to accept the possibility that things might not work out. That you might get hurt. That you might not be chosen. And that's uncomfortable. So instead, many people wait. They wait to be loved first. They wait for certainty. They wait for guarantees that never come. But think about this. How many opportunities have been lost because both people were waiting? Waiting for the other to speak first, to act first, to feel first. Moments that could have become something meaningful simply disappeared because fear was louder than courage. And then there's another layer to this conversation, one that is even more subtle. Sometimes, what we call love isn't really love. Sometimes, it's need. It's the desire to feel valued, to feel seen, to feel important in someone else's life. We want to be chosen because it gives us a sense of worth. We want attention because it fills a space inside us. But that's not the same as loving someone. That's seeking validation. On the other side, we might believe we are loving someone deeply, when in reality, we are projecting onto them. We create an idea of who they are. We imagine what they represent. We build expectations that don't always match reality. And when those expectations aren't met, we feel disappointed, not because of who they are, but because of the story we created. That realization can be difficult, because it forces you to question your own feelings. It makes you ask, was it love, or was it something else? And this leads to one of the most important points of all, the relationship you have with yourself. Because if you don't truly value yourself, everything becomes distorted. When you don't feel enough, being loved by someone else never feels like enough either. You look for more reassurance, more attention, more proof. And when you give love, you might do it from a place of fear. Fear of losing, fear of being abandoned, fear of not being chosen. That's when love turns into self-abandonment. You give too much. You ignore your own needs. You accept less than you deserve. Not because you don't see it, but because you don't feel strong enough to demand something different. So here's a deeper question. How can you expect to experience a balanced love with someone else if you don't have a balanced relationship with yourself? Real love doesn't start with another person. It starts with self-respect, with understanding your value, with knowing when to give and when to step back, with being able to stay true to yourself even when emotions are involved. And when you reach that point, something changes. You no longer ask, is it better to love or to be loved? Because you understand that the real goal isn't one or the other. It's the ability to experience both, without losing yourself in the process. To give, without emptying yourself. To receive, without depending on it. To connect, without needing to control the outcome. And maybe that's what makes love real. Not the intensity alone. Not the sacrifice alone. Not the attention alone. But the balance between all of it. So the next time you find yourself thinking about this question, pause for a moment. Instead of asking which one is better, ask yourself something else. Am I ready to love in a way that is honest, healthy, and free? Am I ready to receive love without turning it into a measure of my worth? Because in the end, love isn't about choosing sides. It's about becoming someone who can hold both, giving and receiving, with truth, awareness, and courage.